June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the throne of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, was assassinated in the city of Sarajevo, Bosnia. His death sparked a series of events that compounded until the conflict now known as World War I emerged, a war in which over 16 million people would die. Due to a system of in-place alliances, countries began taking sides. Despite the increasing number of participants, the isolationist United States remained neutral and would stay so until April 1917. Even though the U.S. abstained from formally entering the conflict for almost 2.5 years, United States citizens have participated since the very beginning. Some brave American souls volunteered as soon as news of the war reached their ears. One of these volunteers was a young Kiffin Rockwell. Though we didn't know at the time, he would become one of the first explorers of combat aviation and a contributor to the fight to bring the United States into World War I. A pioneer of the sky, Kiffin Rockwell. Born into an affluent Southern family in 1892, Kiffin's childhood cultivated a romantic outlook on war. He grew up listening to stories of his grandfather's experience as a Confederate sergeant in the American Civil War. Kiffin idealized honorable conflict and enrolled at Virginia Military Institute, later transferring to Washington and Lee University with the hope of someday serving his country. When news of impending war broke in July of 1914, Kiffin saw the Allied cause as a noble pursuit, as well as an opportunity to leave an indelible mark on the world. He brought up his feelings to his older brother Paul, and the two decided to do more than talk. They would volunteer for their favorite of the nations, France. Kiffin felt that the U.S. owed France from its aid during the Revolution, and if pressed would reply, "I am paying my part of our debt to Lafayette and Rochambeau, two Frenchmen whose actions had been vital to American independence." The day Germany declared war on France, Kiffin wrote a letter to the French consul in New Orleans offering his and Paul's services. A few days later, both were sailing for Europe. After arrival, Kiffin and Paul joined the ranks of the French Foreign Legion, a section of the French Army for foreign volunteers, usually French colonials. Here, he and about 90 other Americans swore an oath of allegiance to the Legion. Paul and Kiffin were in the 2nd Foreign Regiment, 2nd Marching Regiment, Battalion C, 9th Squad. One night, as Kiffin was on watch, they came under a surprise attack. The enemy started to throw hand grenades on the wall to make an entrance where they were stationed, and got away with brutally killing and beheading Kiffin's corporal. This was only a small skirmish, but it had a profound effect on Kiffin's outlook on the war. Kiffin wrote home to his sister Agnes, "Since then, I have had nothing but murder in my heart, and now, no matter what happens, I am going through this war as long as I can." With his primary goal turned from honor to vengeance, Kiffin wanted more action and longed to see the front.
I think he began to realize that that wasn't the kind of war he wanted to fight. When he left for France, they did not know what the war was going to look like. He thought perhaps it might be like what he imagined as a young man, listening to his grandfather and charging across and engaging other men in hand-to-hand combat. But that wasn't the kind of war that World War I turned out to be. And I think he was pretty sure by that point in time he did not want to go back and just step out of a trench and get shot with a machine gun and never have a moment where he was able to perhaps distinguish himself in any way for any kind of a fighting ability. But while he was in the trenches, he's seen these airplanes that are going around, and the airplanes are being used for observation at first, but now both sides are trying to achieve the ability to look at the other Army side, and so they begin to fight each other for control of the skies.
Kiffin put in a request for transfer to the French Aviation Corps, and it was granted almost a month after he rejoined his regiment. In October 1915, Kiffin was sent to train. He had no previous flying experience and was a passenger for his first 5 minutes of flight before flying solo. His determination to be a good soldier quickly translated into skill, and he finished the entire training program in a record 6 weeks. Around the same time that Kiffin was finishing flight school, an interesting breakthrough in the French Army's aviation service was developing. Early on in the war, French officials were dubious of letting any foreign unit fly, for they were worried that the chances of spies in such a squadron were high. Through the work of some persistent Americans, the French Army was eventually convinced to form an American pursuit squadron called the Escadrille American on July 8, 1915. The squadron would serve dual purposes. It would function just as any other French unit and protect the skies above the trenches, but it would also be given special attention from the press to encourage the United States to enter the war. The name would eventually be changed to the Lafayette Escadrille after German protests about American neutrality. Kiffin would become a founder of the escadrille, or one of the 7 original members when the unit finally became organized in the spring of 1916. The escadrille was a pursuit squadron, meaning their planes were for fighting, not reconnaissance. The work was extremely dangerous. It had only been 13 years since the Wright brothers successfully flew at Kitty Hawk, and the field of aviation was experiencing rapid growth in a very short amount of time. Most planes were simple wooden frames covered in canvas. Kiffin was given France's most advanced plane, the Nieuport 17, and his fighting style was exceptionally daring. He would dive after his enemy and hold his fire off until the very last second. Once he was close enough, he would shoot repeatedly, and then quickly turn away to avoid collision. In doing this, he was getting shot in the process, and getting brought down even before firing. Life in the escadrille was exactly what Kiffin wanted out of a war. On May 18th, Kiffin set out on a tour and ended up shooting down an enemy plane just beyond the German trenches. He was the first American to shoot down an enemy machine, and was awarded the Médaille Militaire and the Croix de Guerre. As much as Kiffin enjoyed combat and the thrill of dogfights, there was a fog of sadness covering the escadrille. Its members risked their lives every time they went out, and many fell in battle. To honor his fallen comrades, Kiffin buried himself in his work, and on September 9th, Kiffin was proposed for sea lieutenant. On the 23rd of September, Kiffin and another pilot went out looking for Germans. They became separated, but continued on regardless. Soon, Kiffin spotted a slow-moving observation plane. He dove into action, but as he got closer, 2 enemy planes appeared and proceeded to attack. Kiffin's plane was broken up in the air, and he was shot through the chest with an explosive bullet. The wreckage landed in a field of flowers, not 2.5 miles from where Kiffin had brought down his first German machine. At his funeral, his captain said, "The best and bravest of us all is no more." Kiffin died after receiving 4 confirmed kills, just one away from the title of ace. His fighting partner attested that he probably had many more. They just fell too far behind enemy lines to verify. 4 palms decorated his Croix de Guerre, in reference to the 4 military citations he received for his excellent work. It was revealed later that he had been promoted to sea lieutenant a few days before his death. A memorial to the Lafayette Escadrille stands near Paris today. A ceremony took place in April 2016 to mark the completion of the recent renovations.
On the 18th of May, we had the first engagement where an American aviator scored the first victory. So 100 years have passed. The technology has changed, the engagements, the nature of warfare has changed, but that same bold airman, that same bold, innovative individual is the reason why we're doing as well as we are today, and the reason why we have the world's best air and space force.
When Kiffin Rockwell left the United States to fight for France in 1914, he could scarcely imagine where his decision would take him. By becoming a pilot for the Aeronautic Militaire, he solidified his place in history as one of the pioneers who explored combat aviation through his encounters in the air. Skeptical at first, the French came to be proud of their decision to form an American pursuit squadron. In exchange for allowing an all-American escadrille to fly for them, they received a military as well as a public relations asset to the Allied war effort. For his engagements abroad, fighting and dying for a country that was not even his, Kiffin Rockwell ensured that his legacy would be one of heroism.
And all those truths about what it takes to be successful in air power, the boldness, the innovation, the building of the enterprise, the marriage of bravery and courage and technology, and doing it in a way to be effective. Here is the birthplace of it, and this is how it started.